The poisoned widow entered New York society like a shadow slipping silently into a room. No one knew her origins, only that her beauty was lethal and her charm irresistible. Men whispered about her in clubs, offices, and parlors, speculation growing with every mysterious disappearance. She appeared at high-profile gatherings wearing gowns of delicate silk and lace, her smile perfect, eyes glinting with concealed intent. The first known encounter involved a young merchant, Charles Whitmore, invited to dinner under the guise of courtesy. He was unaware of the whispers circulating in hushed tones across the city. Charles arrived eager to witness her charm, his pride blinding him to lurking danger. As he stepped into her parlor, the air thickened, scented with faint perfumes both intoxicating and subtly unsettling. The widow greeted him warmly, hand extended, voice smooth and melodic, luring him into her world of lethal elegance. Every item in her home was meticulously arranged, from delicate porcelain to subtle bottles whose contents were known only to her. Men of experience, accustomed to intrigue and high society, were often ensnared by her presence, drawn in by allure and unspoken thrill of danger. The rumors suggested she studied poisons in Europe, perfecting concoctions that left no trace yet brought swift or delayed consequences. The young merchant, oblivious to her nature, accepted wine offered with a smile, unaware it contained a deadly tincture. As conversation flowed, Charles felt unease, a shiver crawling along his spine. He attributed it to nerves, social awkwardness, or chill of evening, never suspecting the widow's hand. The night progressed with laughter, delicate music, and soft glances exchanged across the parlor. Every moment choreographed, every word carefully placed to manipulate emotion. Charles became lightheaded, confusion creeping into his thoughts, vision slightly blurred. Yet the widow remained serene, guiding conversation, observing reactions, noting subtle changes in posture, color, or tone. The merchant struggled to maintain composure, attributing unease to fatigue or coincidence. The widow's influence extended beyond chemical effect. It was psychological, a weaving of charm, fear, and fascination, leaving men questioning their senses. The first night ended without incident visible to outsiders. Charles returned home pale and disoriented, feeling a shadow had passed over his mind. The next morning, he awoke with sudden illness, vomiting and tremors overtaking him, physicians unable to determine the cause. Days later, he died quietly in bed, official record noting, unknown illness. Rumors spread rapidly. Tales of vanished men and mysterious deaths whispered in parlors, offices, and clubs. The widow maintained impeccable social etiquette, reputation untouched, presence revered and feared simultaneously. Each new guest became part of the growing legend, cycle of attraction and peril continuing uninterrupted. Men spoke cautiously, some daring to investigate, others returning home terrified after glimpsing her charm and subtle poison. The widow's method was never overt. Mastery of timing, perception, and social influence ensured control without exposure. Every detail, from furniture arrangement to conversation subtleties, manipulated perception and heightened vulnerability. The city amplified the legend, fascination and fear mingling to create an environment where influence was unchallenged. Men approached invitations with dread and excitement, curiosity and fear, unaware of the orchestration awaiting them. The widow's charm was both weapon and shield, disarming suspicion while reinforcing her myth. Survivors recounted dizziness, confusion, sudden weakness, yet testimonies fragmented and difficult to articulate. The psychological impact was profound, leaving men fearful, obsessed, or intrigued. Duality of attraction and terror cementing her reputation. Early accounts described a woman of exceptional beauty, elegance, intelligence, combining allure with cold understanding of human psychology. Men found themselves trapped in fascination, unable to resist proximity despite whispered warnings. The widow's home became a stage, every object, gesture, word a prop in her lethal theater. Even seasoned observers noted precision of her movements, timing of conversation, strategic administration of subtle toxins leaving men disoriented, ill or dead. The stories spread, growing with every retelling, blending fact and fear into a legend transcending ordinary, placing widow in untouchable, omnipotent position. Her beauty and charm disarmed even the most cautious men, creating opportunities for subtle manipulation and lethal influence. The widow's presence was felt before arrival. Whispers, glances, Anticipatory dread prepared victims psychologically for inevitable encounter. Each meeting was a calculated experiment in human behavior. Observations meticulously noted, applied to maximize psychological and physical effect. The combination of charm, intelligence, subtle poisoning, and environmental manipulation ensured each encounter reinforced the myth, leaving men entranced and terrified. Reports of sudden illness, fainting, death spread among social circles. Widow's reputation growing with each account yet untouchable by law or societal reproach. The duality of desire and dread created fascination cycle, compelling men to approach despite risk, amplifying legend and reinforcing control. Mastery of social engineering. Psychology, subtle toxicity allowed operation above consequence, orchestrating events with precision. Every detail, from drink color to timing of compliment, contributed to overarching narrative of charm, danger, subtle death. Men observed and reacted, unaware they were participants and victims in a constructed drama. Climax subtle yet undeniable. Power derived not from overt aggression but from precision, perception, psychological mastery, creating atmosphere where fear and fascination intertwined irresistibly. The city's elite, even those who feared her, found themselves drawn into orbit, attending events, observing, whispering stories, perpetuating terror and allure. Poisoned Widow became more than a woman. She became living legend, symbol of charm, danger, inevitable consequence, method subtle and lethal, weaving inescapable narrative captivating, terrifying, enthralling. Introduction. Established method, charm, lethal influence. Setting stage for growing tension, mysterious illnesses, inescapable fascination defining presence in New York society. Legend was reinforced by repeated encounters, subtle manipulation, undeniable pattern of misfortune following those entering parlor. City shivered under shadow, whispers of vanished men and sudden illness weaving through streets and parlors. Tale became reality and myth simultaneously, allure of danger, thrill of fascination, underlying dread created magnetic pull few could resist, ensuring Widow's influence spread, persisted unchallenged. Introduction. Established foundation of terror. Fascination, subtle manipulation continuing escalation story unfolded, cementing place in New York's dark history. The poisoned Widow's origins were shrouded in mystery, almost entirely undocumented. Whispers suggested she hailed from Europe, possibly France or Italy, trained in chemistry and toxicology under clandestine mentors, teaching subtle use of poisons. Aside from her lethal knowledge, she mastered observation, reading men's intentions, fears, and desires with uncanny accuracy. New York in 1861 was a city of wealth, ambition, and social climbing, and the Widow navigated salons and parlors with grace, intelligence, and calculated charm. Her arrival coincided with rapid urban growth and social fluidity, offering both opportunity and concealment for her dark talents. The Widow selected acquaintances and guests with precision, ensuring each interaction served her purposes. Whether social, financial, or lethal, young men of status, drawn to her beauty, wit, and allure, became companions and subjects, unaware of the subtle threat she posed. Every gathering was curated, placement of guests, objects, and refreshments designed to influence mood and behavior subtly. Her knowledge of poisons allowed minor doses without immediate detection, creating illness that seemed natural or coincidental to the untrained eye. The Widow's home reflected dual nature, elegant and inviting yet meticulously arranged to conceal lethal intent. Visitors often noted strange arrangement of glassware, subtle scent of herbs, careful timing of interactions, though few recognized purpose. Men frequenting her parlor experienced unexplainable illness, dizziness, fainting, disorientation. Pattern of events grew difficult to ignore, yet Widow remained socially untouchable, charm shielding her from suspicion. Efforts by physicians and social observers to determine causes often failed, symptoms subtle, delayed, carefully orchestrated to avoid detection. City newspapers hinted at mysterious ailments and sudden deaths, feeding fear and fascination. Men became obsessed, some daring to observe, others withdrawing, creating tension, anticipation, and rumor. Widow's influence extended beyond physical illness. Mastery of psychological manipulation left men questioning perceptions, fears, desires. Even survivors returned home altered, Vaguely aware of danger, narrowly escaped. Widow's network of servants and confidants ensured secrecy, loyalty, discretion, maintaining orchestration of social and lethal endeavors. Every detail, from furniture arrangement to timing of refreshments, played role in manipulations, controlling environment with precision. Combination of chemical knowledge, psychological insight, and social skill created mythic reputation, ensuring continued influence across New York society. Men whispered privately, comparing notes, warning friends, speculating nature of lethal talent, yet no direct action was taken, constrained by social norms, fear of scandal, calculated charm, elegance. Apparent innocence allowed operation above reproach, blending lethal intent with undeniable social grace. Cities seemed to respond to presence, fascination and dread intertwining to amplify influence, reinforce legendary status. Each visit, dinner, encounter contributed to growing mythology, line between fact and legend blurring as tales of illness, fainting, sudden death circulated. New York society, rife with ambition, curiosity, competition, provided perfect environment for manipulations to thrive. Each social encounter a carefully constructed experiment in charm, control, subtle lethality, mastery of social engineering, observation, environmental influence ensured precise execution of subtle tactics, each detail calculated for maximum psychological and physical effect. Her gatherings often featured select men, chosen for ambition, wealth, and susceptibility, ensuring outcomes matched her plans. Meals and drinks were meticulously arranged, flavors and aromas designed to disarm, engage, subtly influence physiology and perception. Detectives and physicians investigating sudden illness often found no evidence, attributing symptoms to stress, diet, or coincidence. Her reputation remained untarnished, her elegance and intelligence shielding from scrutiny, her lethal methods undetectable to contemporaries. City elites spoke of her cautiously, balancing fascination with fear, attending only when curiosity overcame dread. Widow's interactions were precise, every glance, touch, word engineered to elicit response, manipulate decisions, guide emotions subtly but decisively. The combination of charm, intellect, and lethal skill ensured her influence spread far beyond immediate guests, creating ripple effect across society. Legend and rumor amplified her presence, making men hesitant yet compelled, admiration and fear intertwined, leaving them psychologically entrapped. Social gatherings became arenas for subtle experimentation, measuring susceptibility, reactions to subtle poisons, and effects of psychological manipulation. Patterns of illness, fainting, sudden death reinforced myth, growing with each retelling, making her a figure of both terror and awe. City gossip flourished, feeding fascination, perpetuating influence without exposure. Her mastery of timing, subtlety, and precision ensured events unfolded without suspicion, casualties attributed to chance, health, or coincidence. Even those aware of danger often underestimated skill, believing charm or beauty exaggerated, never suspecting true lethality. Details from layout of parlor to positioning of glassware played roles, each element considered for optimal effect. Psychological manipulation amplified chemical effects, ensuring disorientation, confusion, heightened susceptibility, reinforcing fear and fascination. Men's letters, diaries, and memoirs reflected fragmented recollections, often describing vague dizziness, fainting, illness, leaving permanent psychological mark. The widow's network of confidants maintained secrecy, cleaned evidence, and reinforced narrative, leaving no trace of intent. Her influence extended beyond guests, shaping social expectations, conversations, behaviors, subtly altering norms, creating invisible control. Those who attempted investigation or warning others often faced ridicule, disbelief, or subtle social ostracism, reinforcing her untouchable position. Men continued attending gatherings, driven by ambition, curiosity, desire, or fear, ensuring cycle persisted without interruption. Reputation became legend. City spoke of vanished men, sudden illness, fainting spells, mysterious deaths, perpetuating narrative. Observers noted pattern, charm, hospitality, subtle poison, psychological manipulation, followed by illness or death. Sequence repeated with consistency, leaving men entranced, terrified, bound by fascination and fear. Her duality of elegance and lethality ensured survival, influence, mythic status, precise knowledge of chemistry, poisons, psychology, social norms enabled manipulation with minimal risk, maximum effect. The widow's presence dominated rooms before entrance, whisper of reputation preceding her, setting stage for psychological priming and physical vulnerability. All encounters reinforced legend, ensuring influence perpetuated across social network. Men's obsession, terror, admiration, and curiosity created environment where myth thrived, leaving widow untouchable, feared, revered, and irresistible. The pattern established in first encounters continued systematically, ensuring repeated psychological and physical control across New York society. Men chronicled experiences, but fragmentation of evidence ensured widow remained elusive, invincible mythic figure. As the poisoned widow's influence spread, New York society grew simultaneously fascinated and fearful. Men spoke in hushed tones about her beauty, elegance, and the uncanny pattern of illness and sudden deaths following visits to her parlor. Her early life remained speculative, with only rumors of aristocratic European education and secret studies in toxicology and human behavior. Those who survived encounters often returned home pale, shaken, and obsessed, describing vague dizziness, fainting, or illness, never fully understanding the cause. The widow's strategic social gatherings allowed her to test influence over multiple men simultaneously, observing interactions, responses to charm, and susceptibility to subtle manipulations. Each guest became both subject and participant in a carefully orchestrated experiment designed to reinforce her legend and assert psychological control. The widow maintained meticulous control over every aspect of her environment, placement of furniture, timing of service, lighting, scents, even conversation topics, all calculated to heighten influence, lower resistance, and maximize subtle toxic effects. Men drawn to her charm were often unaware that each gesture, word, or touch had been carefully engineered to create vulnerability. Subtle toxins administered in meals or drinks were designed to induce lightheadedness, disorientation, or temporary illness, often delayed to avoid immediate detection, leaving men questioning their own health and perception. City gossip exaggerated the effects, blending fact with myth, further cementing the widow's reputation as both enchanting and lethal. The widow's mastery of timing, perception, and social psychology ensured that her methods were virtually undetectable, leaving no direct evidence of wrongdoing while creating a climate of unease and fascination. Her influence extended beyond direct victims. Even onlookers and secondary witnesses became part of the legend, spreading cautionary tales and whispered warnings that amplified her power. Men of social standing, businessmen, and young aristocrats found themselves drawn irresistibly into her orbit, driven by curiosity, desire, ambition, and the thrill of danger. The widow's knowledge of chemistry, subtle poisons, and human psychology allowed her to manipulate both body and mind, creating conditions where susceptibility, panic, and awe intertwined. The social elite became participants in her invisible theater, unknowingly reinforcing patterns of attraction, fear, and illness. The combination of charm, calculated appearance, and lethal skill created a persona that was untouchable by law, beyond suspicion, and resistant to conventional investigation. Men who attempted to investigate or warn others often encountered disbelief, social ridicule, or subtle consequences, ensuring the cycle of control and influence remained intact. Every detail in her gatherings was purposeful. The placement of glasses, timing of toasts, musical selection, conversation cues, even gestures were calculated to optimize effect. Subtle manipulation of mood, perception, and social hierarchy ensured men's behavior aligned with her objectives, increasing susceptibility to both psychological and chemical influence. City gossip flourished, blending fact with rumor, each retelling heightening fascination and dread, perpetuating her reputation across social circles. The widow's dual mastery of elegance and lethality allowed her to operate in plain sight, her charm disarming suspicion, while lethal skill executed with precision and discretion. Early reports noted her uncanny ability to read intentions and manipulate desire, exploiting social expectations and vulnerabilities with calculated precision. Men often experienced unexplained fatigue, dizziness or malaise, symptoms appearing hours or days after gatherings, leaving physicians perplexed and reinforcing the mystery surrounding her activities. The widow's network of loyal attendants ensured absolute secrecy, from cleaning traces of toxins to guiding conversations, leaving minimal evidence of her involvement. With each encounter, her legend grew, feeding both curiosity and fear, creating a social environment where avoidance was impossible and engagement inevitable. Those who attempted to resist or decline invitations often faced subtle social pressure, ostracism, or manipulation, ensuring continued participation and reinforcing her control. Over time, repeated patterns of illness, fainting, and unexplained deaths created a discernible yet mysterious signature, a psychological and chemical fingerprint undetectable by contemporary methods. Social historians later described her as a master of human behavior, capable of orchestrating complex interactions with deadly precision, blending charm, elegance, and lethal skill. Men's letters and diaries reflected fragmented memories, vague recollections of symptoms and sensations, creating a mix of fear, fascination, and obsession, further entrenching her myth. Legend and fact merged seamlessly. The widow's manipulations became both reality and story, each reinforcing the other, creating a pervasive sense of inevitability for those who encountered her. The city itself seemed complicit, fascination mingling with fear, amplifying both awareness and curiosity, leaving men psychologically primed for vulnerability. Her mastery extended beyond immediate effects. By observing, recording, and adjusting her tactics, she refined methods for future gatherings, continuously enhancing control and influence. Every meal, conversation, and toast became part of a calculated sequence, producing subtle physical effects and deep psychological impact on her targets. The widow's understanding of perception, anticipation, and human emotion allowed her to manipulate timing and environment to disorient, enthrall, and incapacitate victims. The combination of charm, intelligence, subtle poisons, and environmental control ensured repeated success, leaving little room for suspicion or intervention. Her legend persisted even when individual victims survived. Disorientation, obsession, or unexplained illness ensured the narrative continued, each participant unknowingly perpetuating the myth. New York society both feared and admired her. Fascination with her lethal charm created a magnetic pull, compelling continued engagement despite risk. Every aspect of her life, appearance and behavior reinforced narrative of danger, entwined with desire, cementing place in social consciousness. Her manipulations were subtle but systematic, creating cumulative effects over multiple encounters, ensuring psychological dominance and physical influence remained consistent. The widow's dual mastery of beauty and lethal skill rendered traditional social or legal constraints ineffective, allowing unchecked operation within elite circles. Men chronicled fragmented experiences, sensations of dizziness, malaise, or subtle poisoning, reinforcing awareness of danger without producing concrete evidence. The city became stage for repeated experimentation, observation, and execution, her influence extending through multiple layers of society, both victims and observers entwined in her subtle network. The cumulative effect of charm, social engineering, and subtle toxicology ensured her legend grew with each interaction, leaving the widow untouchable, feared, and revered, her name synonymous with danger, fascination, and lethal elegance. The poisoned widow's impact on New York society was profound, establishing patterns of psychological and chemical control, blending myth and reality, leaving permanent marks on social memory, chronicled in whispers, letters, and fragmented accounts of those who survived encounters, each contributing to her enduring notoriety. The whispers about the poisoned widow grew louder with each passing month. Men who had encountered her began recounting experiences in fragmented whispers, describing sudden weakness, dizziness, or inexplicable malaise, their stories laced with fear and fascination. Society became obsessed with the pattern of her influence, the unexplained illnesses, and the eerie precision with which she manipulated gatherings. The widow's charm and presence created a magnetic pull, drawing men despite warnings and rumors. Each new guest was carefully selected, chosen for ambition, wealth, or susceptibility to subtle manipulation. Her gatherings became arenas for psychological experimentation, every interaction observed, recorded mentally, and adapted for maximum effect. The city's elite became both spectators and victims, intrigued by her reputation and captivated by her elegance. Dining with the widow was a calculated risk. Each movement, toast, and gesture executed with precision to induce subtle physical and psychological effects. Subtle poisons were administered through drinks, small doses designed to create dizziness, fatigue, or delayed illness, leaving victims questioning their own health and perception. Even the placement of furniture, lighting, and music was carefully orchestrated to influence mood, perception, and vulnerability. Her charm was inseparable from danger. Men found themselves entranced, their rationality clouded by fascination and fear. Social circles buzzed with speculation, some daring to investigate, others withdrawing, creating a climate of tension and rumor. The widow's influence extended beyond immediate victims. Secondary observers spread tales, reinforcing fascination and caution simultaneously. Men chronicled odd sensations, fainting spells, or malaise, yet fragments and inconsistency in accounts made coherent conclusions impossible. Legend and fact merged. The widow's manipulations became simultaneously real and myth, feeding intrigue and dread across social networks. Social gatherings were stages for careful observation. The widow measured reactions, susceptibility to charm, and response to subtle toxins. The interplay of chemical influence and psychological manipulation created an environment where participants became entranced and disoriented, reinforcing her reputation of lethal elegance. Observers noted consistency, charm, subtle intoxication, strategic conversation, followed by malaise, disorientation, or fainting, creating pattern yet leaving no proof of wrongdoing. The widow's network of confidants and servants ensured secrecy, cleaning traces, guiding interactions, reinforcing her control over events. Over time, men became both curious and terrified, drawn to gatherings despite fear, unable to resist a lure of danger and fascination with her beauty. The widow's mastery of timing, perception, and social influence allowed manipulation of multiple guests simultaneously, creating cumulative effects of disorientation, illness, and psychological dominance. Even those who avoided direct contact were influenced through stories, letters, and subtle social pressures, ensuring the legend persisted beyond immediate gatherings. Men chronicled fragmented memories, unaware of the subtle poisons, the orchestrated gestures, or the calculated conversations, reinforcing psychological control without evidence. City gossip amplified influence, fascination intertwined with fear, leaving men compelled to attend, observe, or speculate. Despite warnings, ambition, desire, or curiosity drove repeated engagement, ensuring continued interaction with lethal elegance. Every meal, toast, and conversation was a precise tool, inducing subtle physical and psychological effects, consolidating control and reputation. Subtle environmental manipulation, lighting, seating, scent, and music ensured vulnerability, compliance, and heightened suggestibility of guests. The widow's methods were systematic. Repeated exposure to subtle toxins and psychological cues created cumulative effects, leaving men entranced and vulnerable. The interplay of charm, subtle chemical influence, and strategic observation solidified her legendary status. Both feared and revered, the city became a stage for continuous experimentation. Every gathering a blend of social expectation, chemical influence, and psychological observation, creating pattern of influence impossible to trace directly. Men's obsession with her charm, beauty, and reputation grew, feeding cycles of intrigue, attraction, and terror. Subtle manipulation ensured that even those aware of danger underestimated skill, attributing effects to coincidence, stress, or coincidence rather than deliberate action. Evidence of her methods remained invisible, reinforcing belief in myth and legend, blurring lines between reality and fear. The widow's reputation extended beyond gatherings. Social networks, whispers, and letters carried tales of sudden weakness, fainting, or disorientation, magnifying legend. Her influence became self-reinforcing. The more men feared or admired her, the more her power grew, social and psychological leverage intertwining for maximum effect. The widow carefully documented patterns of interaction mentally, adapting gestures, conversation, and subtle poison doses to optimize effect over time. Each engagement became increasingly refined, building upon prior observations, ensuring cumulative control and myth reinforcement. Men experienced inexplicable malaise, dizziness, or fainting spells, often delayed, creating uncertainty, enhancing fear, and reinforcing fascination. Society became mesmerized. Tales of vanished men, sudden illness, and mysterious weakness circulated widely, blending fact with rumor, heightening suspense and dread. The widow's methods combined charm, elegance, strategic poisoning, and environmental control to create intricate psychological dominance, leaving little evidence and maximum impact. Legend intertwined with reality. Fragmented accounts and unexplained illnesses strengthened narrative, captivating, terrifying, and ensnaring the elite of New York. The combination of beauty, lethal skill, and meticulous planning made her untouchable. Attempts at intervention failed due to social constraints, disbelief, and lack of tangible evidence. Each gathering reinforced the cycle. Fascination compelled attendance, subtle poisoning induced malaise, observation refined tactics, and rumor amplified power, ensuring continuity and cumulative control. The widow's dual mastery of social engineering and toxicology allowed her to operate beyond scrutiny, commanding psychological and chemical influence over guests, shaping social perception and reinforcing legend. Her presence was both anticipated and feared. The allure of beauty coupled with danger ensured men could not resist, perpetuating cycle of attraction, fear, and subtle demise. The widow's strategic orchestration of events, environmental manipulation, and psychological insight ensured repeated success, embedding her myth deeply in the social consciousness. Each encounter, observation, and fragmentary account contributed to her notoriety, leaving an indelible impression on society, reinforcing her position as a figure both fascinating and lethal. The stage was set for escalation, as the widow's legend spread. Patterns of illness, fascination, and subtle psychological control intensified, building toward inevitable climax of her influence over New York society. Men became both participants and victims, unwittingly complicit in their own disorientation, malaise, and psychological capture, further cementing her reputation and the cycle of lethal charm. The widow's influence grew inexorably, blending social, chemical, and psychological elements into an elegant yet deadly formula that few could resist, none could challenge, and many feared, leaving a city entranced, cautious, and perpetually intrigued. The poisoned widow's gatherings became increasingly notorious as tales of sudden illness and unexplained weakness spread across New York society. Men spoke of fainting spells, dizzying disorientation, and lingering malaise experienced during or after encounters, each story amplifying fear and fascination. Her mastery of charm, elegance, and subtle manipulation allowed her to orchestrate multiple interactions simultaneously, ensuring precise control over her guests. Every detail in her parlor, from lighting to seating arrangement, was meticulously planned to influence perception and heighten vulnerability. Each meal and drink was a carefully measured test, doses of subtle toxins designed to induce faintness, nausea, or delayed illness, leaving victims questioning their own minds and bodies. The widow's psychological insight allowed her to anticipate reactions, adapting gestures, conversation, and pacing to maximize effect and reinforce her legend. Social observers noted the consistency, charm, attentiveness, and lethal elegance followed by unexplained illness, yet no tangible evidence existed to implicate her directly. City gossip intensified, blending fact and rumor, heightening suspense and fascination, ensuring that even those who had not met her were captivated by the stories. Men of ambition, wealth, and social curiosity found themselves irresistibly drawn into her orbit, compelled by a mixture of fear, desire, and fascination. The widow's influence extended beyond the immediate effects of illness. She shaped perceptions, expectations, and behaviors through subtle cues, strategic conversation, and careful observation. Observers and secondary witnesses contributed to the growing myth, recounting fragmented experiences and odd sensations, amplifying her reputation as both enchanting and deadly. Reports of fainting, dizziness, and malaise became routine, yet attribution remained elusive, confounding physicians and investigators. The city itself seemed to respond to her presence. Fascination, dread, and rumor intertwined to amplify awareness, creating an environment primed for manipulation. Men chronicled experiences with fragmented memories, aware of danger yet unable to identify cause, reinforcing psychological control without evidence. Her mastery of timing, subtle chemical influence, and psychological observation allowed repeated, cumulative effects, entrancing victims and perpetuating her legend. Every interaction, from casual conversation to formal dinner, served as an experiment in charm, influence, and subtle poisoning, reinforcing her reputation and social control. The widow's dual skill in elegance and lethal technique rendered conventional investigation ineffective, leaving her untouchable and revered. Men's obsession with her beauty, social prowess, and mysterious influence created a self-perpetuating cycle of engagement and vulnerability. Repeated encounters induced disorientation, mild illness, or psychological fixation, often delayed to obscure causality, amplifying fear and fascination. Social pressure, curiosity, and desire ensured continued participation, despite growing awareness of danger, reinforcing control over guests and observers. The combination of charm, subtle toxins, and environmental manipulation created an environment in which men were simultaneously entranced and vulnerable, further cementing her myth. The widow's meticulous documentation of responses, gestures, and outcomes allowed refinement of methods, ensuring maximum impact in subsequent gatherings. Each meal, toast, conversation, and gesture became a deliberate tool, producing subtle but cumulative physical and psychological effects. Subtle environmental cues, music, lighting, and scents were leveraged to enhance vulnerability, induce faintness or malaise, and maintain psychological dominance. Observers and participants alike were complicit in spreading her legend. Fragmented stories, rumors, and letters amplified fascination and fear across social circles. Legend and fact intertwined seamlessly. The widow's manipulations became both real and mythic, feeding curiosity, dread, and social obsession. Men often attributed physical effects to coincidence, stress, or fatigue, never recognizing calculated chemical and psychological influence. The widow's control extended through layers of social interaction. Even secondary witnesses were influenced by observation, gossip, and fear, perpetuating cycle of fascination and dread. Cumulative exposure to subtle toxins and psychological cues ensured repeated disorientation, reinforcing perception of inevitable danger, enhancing myth and social control. Her dual mastery of social engineering and toxicology allowed manipulation beyond scrutiny, producing systematic psychological dominance over a wide network of victims and observers. Every encounter reinforced legend. Fascination and fear compelled continued attendance. Experimentation and rumor propagation, subtle poisoning, environmental cues, and strategic conversation produced measurable psychological and physical effects, consolidating influence and perpetuating myth. The widow's charm, intelligence, and lethal skill created untouchable status. Her presence simultaneously desired and feared, ensuring compliance without overt coercion. Men became both participants and victims, unaware of manipulation, their fragmented experiences feeding her reputation and control. Citywide fascination grew. Tales of dizziness, fainting, and malaise circulated widely, blending fact, rumor, and embellishment, amplifying anticipation and dread. Every social engagement served as a carefully orchestrated interaction, producing cumulative psychological and physical outcomes, reinforcing perception of inevitability and power. Her strategic orchestration of gestures, conversation, environment, and subtle toxins ensured continued dominance, embedding legend in social consciousness. Men's fragmented recollections of interactions with sudden malaise, fainting, or disorientation contributed to the narrative of enchantment and danger, reinforcing the widow's myth and societal control. The widow's presence became both symbol and instrument. Beauty, elegance, and subtle lethality created an aura of fascination and fear, compelling repeated engagement and observation. The city's elite, despite awareness of risk, found themselves drawn irresistibly into orbit, captivated by the combination of allure and danger, contributing to legend, perpetuating influence, and ensuring continued psychological dominance. Each encounter, observation, and rumor further embedded the widow's reputation, producing cumulative impact on social consciousness, perception, and behavior, leaving the city both entranced and cautious. The stage was set for escalation. Repeated exposure, observation, and subtle chemical influence ensured tension, anticipation, and vulnerability reached levels that would culminate in an inevitable climax of her lethal social mastery. Men unknowingly participated in orchestrated patterns of fascination, disorientation, and subtle poisoning, ensuring enduring legend, reinforcing her control, and amplifying fear and admiration across social strata. The poisoned widow's methods reached a terrifying crescendo during a grand gathering at her New York parlor. Men of influence, wealth, and social curiosity were drawn by rumor, ambition, and fascination, unaware they were entering a carefully orchestrated trap. The evening began with elegant music, soft candlelight, and meticulously arranged seating, designed to disarm, entice, and subtly influence guests. The widow's charm was magnetic, her smile precise, movements graceful, eyes calculating, reading intentions, fears, and desires with lethal accuracy. Drinks were offered, each glass carefully measured, infused with subtle toxins that would induce faintness, disorientation, or delayed illness. The guests conversed, laughed, and admired her beauty, unaware of the psychological and chemical manipulations unfolding around them. Each toast, compliment, and gesture was orchestrated, timing calibrated to heighten susceptibility, anticipation, and intrigue. Subtle environmental cues, scented candles, soft music, warm lighting, enhanced influence, creating atmosphere of comfort masking danger. Men began to experience lightheadedness, dizziness, and malaise, attributing symptoms to fatigue or excitement, never suspecting deliberate orchestration. The widow observed silently, noting reactions, adjusting gestures, conversation, and toxin administration for maximum cumulative effect. Some men began to stumble, others paused, confused by sudden weakness, their senses manipulated both chemically and psychologically. Her mastery ensured symptoms appeared gradually, producing uncertainty, fear, and fascination simultaneously. The atmosphere thickened with tension, men swaying between attraction and dread, unable to distinguish reality from perception. Subtle poisoning, precise observation, and psychological manipulation converged, producing effects that were devastating yet invisible. Men's attention fixated on her. Fascination overrode caution, curiosity masked fear, ensuring continued engagement even as physical symptoms manifested. The widow's execution was flawless. No trace, no immediate cause, only cumulative malaise, disorientation, and eventual incapacitation. The guests' fragmented awareness contributed to legend. Whispers spread of sudden weakness, fainting, and unexplainable illness amplifying terror and fascination. Her dual mastery of elegance and lethal skill rendered intervention impossible. The elite were ensnared by charm and manipulation before they even perceived danger. Every gesture was calculated, hand extended, gaze fixed, voice soothing yet commanding, guiding emotions, perception, and physical responses. Drinks and food, seemingly ordinary, delivered precise doses to induce subtle physiological disruption, enhancing psychological effect. Men began to doubt their senses, attributing malaise to excitement, social pressure, or coincidence, never suspecting deliberate action. The widow's psychological acumen amplified chemical effects, producing dizziness, nausea, and mental confusion, leaving guests entranced and vulnerable. Fragmented recollections, inconsistent memories, and delayed symptoms ensured the event would become legend. Narratives distorted by fear and fascination. Subtle manipulations extended to conversation topics, positioning of guests, and timing of movements, each designed to maximize cumulative influence. Her observation was meticulous, every blush, pause, tremor, or hesitation noted, guiding subsequent actions and adjustments for optimum effect. The chemical and psychological orchestration created layers of impact, physical weakness compounded by confusion, fascination, and fear. Men attempted to stand, converse, or move, only to falter. The widow's presence guiding each reaction, reinforcing dominance and reinforcing legend. Subtle gestures, whisper of hand on arm, smile, or gaze ensured attention remained fixed, perception skewed, vulnerability heightened. Society's elite became both audience and participants in this lethal theater, unaware they were instruments of her deadly elegance. Every detail, from drink color to conversational cue, lighting, and musical tone, was calibrated to enhance cumulative effect, ensuring maximum psychological and physical influence. The evening progressed, some men collapsing into chairs, others struggling to maintain composure, all under her precise observation and manipulation. Men's fragmented awareness and delayed symptoms created uncertainty and fear, intensifying fascination, ensuring legend would endure even without external validation. The widow's lethal mastery extended beyond immediate effect. She measured influence over time, observing cumulative weakness, lingering malaise, and psychological fixation. Her control ensured victims remained entranced, their faculties compromised, unable to resist charm, allure, and subtle chemical influence, subtle environmental manipulations, light shifts, music tempo, temperature variations, enhanced chemical and psychological impact, disorienting and captivating simultaneously. Men found themselves compelled to remain, participate and observe, fascination overpowering instinct, fear tempered by desire for approval, recognition, or social status. The widow's skillful orchestration produced observable effects: pallor, dizziness, trembling hands, faint smiles masking internal disorientation, all perfectly synchronized with psychological manipulation. Every reaction was noted, every movement accounted for, ensuring cumulative impact while maintaining social veneer and reputation. The combination of charm, lethal skill, psychological insight, and subtle poisoning ensured that even those aware of risk were powerless to resist influence. Effects were staggered, subtle, cumulative, leaving men questioning their health, perception, and judgment, reinforcing myth and legend without tangible evidence. Her precise timing ensured that symptoms manifested in patterns, some immediate, others delayed, creating uncertainty, fear, and fascination across multiple layers of social interaction. Whispers and fragmented accounts spread rapidly. Men discussed subtle dizziness, fainting, or disorientation, cementing her reputation as both enchanting and deadly. The city's elite, enthralled by curiosity, desire, and social expectation, continued attending gatherings, reinforcing cycles of psychological and physical control. Amplifying legend, the widow's meticulous planning, observation, and execution ensured no suspicion could arise, her charm and elegance shielding lethal intentions perfectly. Men's fragmented memories, coupled with delayed physical symptoms, created enduring psychological impact, ensuring fascination, fear, and obsession persisted long after gatherings ended. Each incident, carefully orchestrated, reinforced narrative of beauty, danger, and inevitability, establishing the widow as a figure of lethal elegance and psychological mastery. Her social and chemical manipulations converged to produce a climax of influence over New York society, a terrifying peak of control that would define reputation for years to come. Every element, from charm to poison, observation to environment, was meticulously synchronized to produce cumulative psychological and physical effect, leaving men entranced, disoriented, and entrapped. The culmination of skill, preparation, and lethal precision ensured that the widow's influence reached apex, creating enduring legend, fascination, and fear across social and historical record. Men would forever recount fragmented experiences, dizziness, fainting, and malaise, reinforcing perception of inevitability, inescapable charm, and lethal precision. The grand climax of gatherings, orchestrated with absolute mastery, showcased lethal beauty, psychological manipulation, and subtle toxicity, leaving New York society captivated, fearful, and enthralled. The poisoned widow's influence, both chemical and psychological, culminated in precise, cumulative, and unforgettable events, establishing peak of her lethal reign, setting stage for aftermath, investigation, and legend's permanence. As the evening continued, the effects of the poisoned widow's orchestration became undeniable. Men swayed, pale and trembling, their faculties compromised by subtle toxins and psychological manipulation. Social masks remained, smiles and polite laughter hiding internal chaos, confusion, and mounting fear. The widow observed every detail, noting pallor, tremors, hesitation, and faltering speech, adjusting gestures and conversation to maintain control. Drinks were refilled, each sip carrying precise doses, inducing delayed nausea, dizziness, or faintness, compounding earlier effects. The music softened and swelled strategically, scent of candles heightened, lighting dimmed, each environmental element calibrated to manipulate perception, emotion, and physical response. Whispers of fear traveled silently among guests. Fragmented accounts of unease and sickness circulated subtly, reinforcing social pressure and fascination. Men questioned their senses, attributing weakness to excitement, fatigue, or coincidence, unaware of deliberate orchestration. The widow's charm remained flawless, commanding attention, captivating eyes and minds, guiding thoughts, emotions, and actions with lethal precision. Every gesture, hand movement, and gaze executed to heighten susceptibility, ensuring attention remained fixed and perception skewed. The cumulative effects were profound. Disorientation, dizziness, nausea, and psychological fixation intertwined, leaving men entranced yet debilitated. Subtle conversation cues exploited personal desires, fears, and ambitions, amplifying vulnerability and reinforcing control. Observers noted patterns, sudden weakness, malaise, fainting coupled with charm and elegance, producing unmistakable yet undetectable influence. The widow's mastery of chemistry, psychology, and social engineering ensured no evidence could be traced, yet impact was absolute. Men struggled to maintain composure, faint smiles masking internal confusion, fascination, and dread. The interplay of charm, chemical influence, and environmental control created a seamless convergence, producing observable yet inexplicable effects. Men attempted to converse, move, or drink, yet every action subtly guided, delayed, or manipulated, maximizing cumulative effect. The city's elite, complicit in perpetuating tales, spread fragmented stories of dizziness, fainting, and malaise, reinforcing the widow's myth and power. Each staggered symptom, delayed reaction, and moment of confusion amplified narrative of lethal elegance, fascination, and danger. Her presence created tension and anticipation, compelling engagement, ensuring continued participation even amidst physical discomfort or fear. Subtle variations in conversation, timing of gestures, and positioning within the room optimized psychological manipulation, enhancing cumulative effect. The widow's skill ensured that victims remained enthralled, captivated, and disoriented, their attention and perception under total control. Subtle poisoning combined with psychological cues produced staggered onset of symptoms, maximizing uncertainty and fascination. The city buzzed with rumors. Men whispered of sudden illness, fainting, and bewildering encounters, spreading fascination and dread without concrete evidence. Every guest, even those partially affected, contributed to legend. Fragmented experiences, delayed symptoms, and lingering malaise reinforced narrative of irresistible yet lethal charm. The widow's orchestration extended beyond immediate victims. Secondary observers, witnesses, and society at large became complicit in perpetuating myth, amplifying her reach and influence. The combination of subtle chemical influence, psychological insight, charm, and environmental mastery produced cumulative impact across multiple layers of society, reinforcing fear, fascination, and control. Men chronicled vague sensations, dizziness, fainting, or malaise, often leaving fragmented accounts, which further blurred line between reality and legend. The widow's dual mastery of elegance and lethality rendered conventional scrutiny futile. No evidence existed, yet impact was tangible and undeniable. The evening reached peak influence, men debilitated, entranced, and psychologically captivated, their experiences forming fragmented but consistent pattern reinforcing myth and legend. Her precise observation, timing, and adjustments ensured optimal cumulative effects, leaving men questioning health, perception, and judgment. Subtle manipulations reinforced social expectations, ensuring continued attendance, fascination, and engagement despite growing awareness of risk. The poisoned widow's lethal elegance, psychological mastery, and strategic chemical influence converged to produce peak of societal impact, enthralling elite while leaving them incapacitated in body or mind. Each staggered reaction, delayed symptom, and psychological fixation ensured narrative of fascination, dread, and inevitability persisted across social circles. Legend intertwined with reality. Fragmented recollections, fainting spells, malaise, and confusion cemented perception of both irresistible charm and lethal precision. The widow's influence extended beyond immediate participants. Observers, society at large, and subsequent generations absorbed tales, creating enduring mythos of fascination, fear, and deadly elegance. Every minute, gesture, and sip was meticulously calculated to maximize cumulative psychological and physical impact. leaving no trace of intent yet undeniable results. Her mastery of timing, charm, environment, and subtle chemical influence produced outcomes impossible to challenge, ensuring continued dominance and myth reinforcement. Men's obsession with beauty, charm, and dangerous allure ensured continued engagement, perpetuating cycle of fascination, psychological capture, and subtle debilitation. The city itself seemed ensnared. Fascination, dread, and rumor intertwined, reinforcing myth and anticipation, ensuring participation and compliance across social strata. Subtle manipulations produced staggered onset of symptoms, enhancing confusion, vulnerability, and obsession, leaving men enthralled, disoriented, and compliant. The widow's precise execution, observation, and control ensured peak of lethal influence, producing unforgettable events that would define legacy for decades. The climax of the Poisoned Widow's gatherings illustrated combination of charm, elegance, lethal skill, and meticulous orchestration, achieving maximum psychological and physical dominance. Subtle cues, environmental manipulation, and delayed toxicity created effects that were simultaneously invisible and profound, ensuring legend would endure without tangible evidence. Men were ensnared, captivated, and incapacitated in ways they could not comprehend, reinforcing narrative of inescapable allure, fatal charm, and psychological mastery. Her lethal artistry culminated in an event of perfection, leaving society captivated, fearful, and enthralled, producing fragmentary memories, lingering malaise, and an enduring legend that would echo across New York's social history. The Poisoned Widow's power reached zenith, a terrifyingly elegant demonstration of control, fascination, and lethal mastery, producing psychological and physical effects both subtle and devastating, ensuring societal impact would be remembered indefinitely. In the days following the widow's gatherings, New York society reeled from confusion, fear, and fascination. Men whispered of lingering dizziness, unexplained weakness, and malaise that seemed to persist long after her presence vanished. Fragmented accounts of sudden illness circulated in private letters, diaries, and hushed conversations, leaving the city enthralled and unsettled. Her charm remained intact. Social circles debated whether her beauty concealed danger or whether the fear itself amplified symptoms. Physicians attempted to investigate, yet symptoms were subtle, delayed, and inconsistent, leaving no concrete evidence of wrongdoing. The elite questioned their own judgment, recalling fainting spells, dizziness, or malaise, yet unable to trace cause, creating collective uncertainty and obsession. Men who had attended gatherings described vague sensations of weakness, blurred perception, and lingering confusion, creating fragmented psychological impressions that persisted across days or weeks. The city became divided between those fascinated and those cautious. Curiosity compelled attendance, fear warned avoidance, yet allure prevailed, subtle rumors amplified, each retelling intensifying fascination, dread, and social pressure, ensuring continued engagement despite risk. The widow's reputation grew, her influence extending beyond immediate gatherings. Society itself became a conduit for myth, rumor, and psychological impact. Her mastery of charm, observation, and subtle poison ensured that even those aware of risk could not fully resist attraction, reinforcing cycles of fascination and vulnerability. Even secondary observers reported unease, faintness, or malaise after hearing fragmented tales, demonstrating psychological reach beyond direct exposure. Men reflected privately, attempting to rationalize weakness, dizziness, or malaise, attributing symptoms to stress, fatigue, or coincidence, never suspecting deliberate orchestration. Fragmented memories and delayed onset of symptoms ensured the widow remained untouchable. Her lethal elegance left no trace, yet impact was undeniable. Observers documented curiosity and fear in private notes, reflecting on uncanny patterns, sudden weakness, and psychological dominance imposed during gatherings. The widow's influence extended through social networks, shaping perceptions, expectations, and behavior across multiple strata, leaving men entranced, fascinated, and disoriented. Rumors spread quickly, blending fact and legend, creating mythos that further reinforced her untouchable status and psychological impact. Men who had suffered mild symptoms became narrators, perpetuating legend without evidence, leaving society captivated, fearful, and intrigued. The city's elite debated whether fascination or dread was more compelling, Yet social pressure, curiosity, and desire ensured continued engagement and attendance. The widow's orchestration of events, subtle poisoning, psychological insight, and charm left society both captivated and vulnerable, unable to resist allure despite awareness of risk. Fragmented accounts, lingering malaise and delayed disorientation reinforced legend, ensuring fascination and fear persisted across weeks, months, and even years. The aftermath solidified her myth. The combination of charm, subtle chemical influence, and psychological mastery ensured her reputation remained untarnished. Her influence extended into personal perception. Men questioned own memory, judgment, and physical responses, heightening psychological captivity and reinforcing cycles of fear, fascination, and desire. Even social commentators noted pattern: beauty, charm, subtle manipulation, sudden illness, and lingering psychological impact, yet lacked evidence to challenge her. The widow's mastery created an invisible web of influence. Those untouched physically remained ensnared mentally, contributing to legend, fear, and fascination. Observations documented subtlety and timing of her influence, staggered symptoms, environmental manipulation, psychological cues, all converging to ensure cumulative effect and perpetuation of myth. Fragmented recollections in diaries, letters, and gossip amplified fascination. Each retelling reinforced perception of inevitable, irresistible, and lethal charm. Men sought rational explanations for lingering malaise, dizziness, or fainting, yet the subtle orchestration eluded comprehension, reinforcing aura of mystique and invincibility. The city became a stage for psychological ripple effects. Whispers, rumors, and fragmented stories created pervasive sense of caution, fear, and fascination, amplifying the widow's impact beyond immediate gatherings. Subtle poisoning, delayed symptoms, and psychological manipulation ensured fragmented yet cumulative impact, leaving men entranced, confused, and compelled to recount experiences to others. The widow's dual mastery of lethal skill and social charm rendered legal, medical, and social intervention ineffective, ensuring continued operation within elite circles without reprisal. The aftermath demonstrated reach and precision. Psychological and physical effects persisted. Fragmented accounts circulated, reinforcing myth, fascination, and dread. Her charm remained magnetic, drawing new participants even amidst awareness of risk, ensuring continuous cycle of engagement, observation, and subtle influence. Men questioned sanity, perception, and memory, amplifying psychological dominance, creating layers of uncertainty and obsession that furthered legend. The city's elite became complicit in perpetuating myth. Fear, fascination, and social expectation ensured participation and rumor propagation. The widow's subtle orchestration extended to indirect influence. Secondary observers, letter writers, and gossip channels magnified impact, producing cumulative effect beyond immediate victims. Fragmented, delayed, and inconsistent symptoms ensured no evidence could emerge, yet psychological and social influence remained undeniable. Legend grew. The widow's lethal elegance, charm, and subtle mastery of environment, chemical influence, and observation created enduring fascination, fear, and obsession across society. The aftermath was a blend of awe and terror. The city's elite chronicled fragmented experiences, lingering malaise, dizziness, and fainting, ensuring psychological capture without direct evidence. Subtle manipulation of perception, anticipation, and memory ensured continued fascination, compelling future engagement, rumor propagation, and psychological reinforcement. The widow's mastery ensured enduring influence. Men remained captivated, fearful, and obsessed, unable to resist charm or legend, perpetuating cycles of fascination and dread. Accomplished social engineering and chemical precision converged to produce cumulative aftermath. Lingering psychological impact, fragmented memory, disorientation, and social reinforcement. Legend embedded deeply. New York society was captivated, cautious, and mesmerized, leaving psychological and social legacy that would endure through whispered tales, fragmented accounts, and ongoing fascination. Men reflected on events with both dread and admiration. The fragmented, delayed, and subtle nature of impact ensuring enduring narrative of lethal charm and psychological mastery. The widow's influence persisted, social and psychological mechanisms ensuring fascination. fear and legend outlasted physical presence, embedding myth in collective memory and social consciousness. As weeks passed, the poisoned widow's legend grew, spreading beyond immediate social circles. Men recounted lingering dizziness, fatigue, and malaise, their fragmented experiences circulating in diaries, letters, and whispered conversations. The city itself became a stage for her influence. Fascination and fear intertwined, amplifying her psychological impact. Social observers noted patterns, fainting spells, subtle illness, and mental disorientation consistently following encounters. Yet no evidence could implicate her directly. The widow's charm remained undiminished, drawing new participants, her lethal elegance ensuring continuous engagement. Despite warnings, men of wealth, influence, and curiosity found themselves irresistibly drawn to her gatherings. Compelled by allure and fascination, the subtle orchestration of conversation, gesture, and environmental cues magnified psychological and physical impact, creating cumulative effects that persisted across days or weeks. Fragmented memories of dizziness, fainting, and malaise reinforced perception of inevitable, irresistible, and dangerous charm. Men questioned their own health, perception, and judgment, contributing to psychological dominance and perpetuation of legend. The widow's dual mastery of social engineering and chemical influence rendered conventional investigation futile. Symptoms were subtle, delayed, and inconsistent, leaving no proof. Even indirect observers, hearing tales or reading letters, reported psychological effects, unease, curiosity, and fascination, demonstrating reach beyond immediate victims. Her influence penetrated multiple layers of society. Fragmented accounts, rumor, and fascination amplified impact and social control. Men chronicled partial experiences, blurred recollections, and lingering malaise, reinforcing narrative of irresistible beauty, danger, and lethal precision. The city buzzed with gossip, each retelling heightened suspense, dread, and curiosity, compelling continued attendance and engagement despite risk. The widow's meticulous orchestration of charm, observation, and subtle poisoning ensured persistent psychological dominance over both direct and indirect participants. Fragmented symptoms and delayed onset ensured absence of evidence while maintaining cumulative physical and mental influence. Society became both audience and instrument, perpetuating fascination, fear, and legend, reinforcing cycles of psychological and social manipulation. Men struggled to understand persistent malaise, dizziness, or fainting, attributing causes to coincidence, fatigue, or stress, never recognizing deliberate orchestration. Her mastery ensured continuous engagement. Charm and allure outweighed fear, compelling repeated participation and rumor propagation. The aftermath was pervasive. Men remained captivated, fearful, and mesmerized. Psychological dominance sustained without intervention or evidence. Fragmented experiences spread via letters, diaries, and whispers, reinforcing myth and legend across social networks. The widow's lethal elegance and psychological acumen created enduring cycles of fascination, obsession, and subtle physical impact. Men's awareness of risk only amplified fascination, ensuring continued participation and perpetuation of influence and legend. The city itself became complicit. Social networks, gossip, and curiosity carried the impact further than direct exposure, amplifying cumulative effect. The widow's presence, whether direct or through narrative, maintained psychological grip. Fascination, dread, and social pressure ensured participation and rumor propagation. Her manipulation extended to secondary observers. Anticipation, fragmented stories, and social expectation induced subtle malaise, reinforcing cycles of psychological control. Fragmented memories, delayed symptoms, and subtle effects ensured absence of proof while perpetuating myth, legend, and fascination. The widow's influence transcended direct interaction. Social networks became instruments of legend, amplifying fear, fascination, and engagement across multiple layers of society. Her dual mastery of charm and subtle lethality ensured enduring fascination, fear, and obsession, leaving fragmented recollections that reinforced perception of inescapable allure and danger. Men chronicled sensations of dizziness, fainting, and malaise, contributing to social narrative and reinforcing psychological dominance. The cumulative aftermath of gatherings ensured long-term impact. Fascination, fear, and social expectation maintained engagement. Rumor propagation, and psychological control. Subtle chemical influence, staggered symptoms, and strategic social cues ensured persistent effect without tangible evidence, reinforcing myth and legend across social strata. The widow's lethal mastery extended into perception, memory, and expectation. Men questioned sanity, health, and judgment, amplifying psychological dominance. Fragmented accounts reinforced fascination and fear, ensuring enduring cycles of observation, rumor, and legend. Psychological and social manipulation persisted. Indirect witnesses, gossip, and narrative spread amplified cumulative influence, embedding myth in societal consciousness. The widow's charm, lethal skill, and strategic orchestration maintained dominance. Repeated exposure, anticipation, and social pressure ensured continued engagement and fascination. The aftermath solidified enduring narrative, lethal beauty, subtle manipulation, and psychological mastery, producing fragmented recollections, lingering malaise, and legend. Her impact on New York society was profound. Fascination, fear, and psychological influence spread through direct and indirect channels, embedding myth and legend in social memory. Fragmented recollections, delayed symptoms, and subtle psychological effects created cycles of fear, fascination, and engagement that persisted across social networks. Men became both participants and instruments of her legend. Physical weakness, disorientation, and psychological capture reinforced myth without proof. The city itself absorbed influence. Gossip, letters, and observation amplified cumulative effect, creating pervasive fascination and dread. Subtle chemical influence and psychological manipulation ensured repeated, layered impact, leaving men entranced, confused, and compelled to recount experiences. The widow's mastery of charm, observation, environment, and chemistry produced enduring cycles of fascination and legend. Society itself became instrument and amplifier. Fragmented experiences persisted. Social networks carried tales of malaise, fainting, and dizziness. Reinforcing legend and fear across strata, men remained captivated, fearful, and mesmerized. Psychological dominance sustained without tangible evidence. Legend continually reinforced. The cumulative aftermath ensured the widow's lethal elegance. Charm and subtle mastery became permanent fixtures in social memory, inspiring fascination, dread, and obsession across New York society. The city's elite continued to reflect, discuss, and propagate tales. Fragmented memories, subtle malaise, and lingering fascination reinforced cycles of observation, engagement, and legend. The widow's influence endured, her lethal beauty, psychological mastery, and subtle chemical control leaving indelible marks on social perception, behavior, and memory, ensuring myth persisted indefinitely. Even as the poisoned widow faded from immediate view, her legend endured. Shrouded in mystery and speculation, New York society whispered of her whereabouts, uncertain if she had moved, vanished, or continued influence from the shadows. The pattern of fainting, malaise, and psychological disorientation persisted in fragmented accounts, leaving investigators baffled. Subtle chemical traces, if present, left no tangible evidence. Delayed symptoms made causation impossible to prove. Her influence seemed to linger in memory itself, creating psychological residue in men who had encountered her, ensuring fascination, dread, and repeated rumination. Men questioned whether illness was natural or orchestrated, the line between myth and reality blurring further with each retelling. Fragmented diaries, letters, and private notes detailed dizziness, fainting, and malaise, yet inconsistencies and delays prevented verification. The widow's methods were beyond conventional science. Chemical analysis, medical observation, and psychological scrutiny failed to detect source, dosage, or intention. Legends circulated of men who vanished completely after extended interactions, their absences unexplained and mysterious. Society speculated whether she had accomplices, secret knowledge, or supernatural ability to manipulate perception, chemistry, and psychology simultaneously. The cumulative effect of fascination, fear, and social pressure ensured that memory itself became instrument of influence. Men questioned reality, perception, and judgment. Her whereabouts became a puzzle. Some claimed sightings in distant locations. Others suspected she remained hidden within social circles, observing, influencing, and perpetuating legend. The subtle orchestration of gatherings, staggered symptoms, and social manipulation produced outcomes resistant to investigation. Enhancing aura of mystery. Men debated whether experiences were coincidental, psychosomatic, or deliberate, the ambiguity amplifying fascination and dread. Society's elite speculated endlessly. No concrete evidence could resolve fragmented accounts, delayed symptoms, and mysterious disappearances. The widow's control extended beyond physical encounters. Fragmented memory, rumor, and social expectation ensured psychological influence persisted indefinitely. Mystery compounded her legend. Fascination intensified by uncertainty, absence of proof, and repeated engagement despite fear. Fragmented accounts of dizziness, fainting, and malaise circulated for months, leaving narrative both compelling and incomprehensible. Even physicians were confounded. Chemical tests, observation, and diagnosis failed to identify cause, timing, or mechanism of influence. The widow's mastery of charm, observation, and subtle chemistry created layered effects. Perception, memory, and physical response were all manipulated, rendering science ineffective. Men remained ensnared. Anticipation, fear, fascination, and lingering malaise ensured psychological control extended beyond immediate encounters. Legends grew of victims who vanished entirely, leaving fragmented accounts, rumors, and fear that propagated her myth. Mystery ensured her influence persisted. Even those who never met her felt psychological pressure, curiosity, and fascination through social networks and rumor. The blurred line between myth and reality amplified fascination. Men questioned health, perception, and judgment, reinforcing cycles of psychological capture. Fragmented experiences became part of social fabric. Each retelling, embellished or factual, reinforced perception of inescapable charm, subtle lethality, and psychological dominance. The widow's methods remained unknowable. Subtle chemical influence, psychological insight, and environmental manipulation combined to produce untraceable yet profound effects. Men recounted lingering dizziness, fainting, and malaise unable to attribute cause, creating enduring psychological imprint that perpetuated myth. Her absence did not diminish influence. Anticipation, rumor, and fragmented accounts ensured engagement and fascination persisted indefinitely. Society speculated whether she had vanished, changed identity, or continued influence from shadows. The uncertainty amplifying fascination and dread. Fragmented diaries, letters, and social reports chronicled subtle effects. Men reported sudden weakness, dizziness, and confusion, leaving narrative incomplete yet compelling. The widow's mastery transcended direct interaction. Memory, rumor, anticipation, and social expectation became instruments of control, reinforcing legend and mystery. Men questioned coincidence, stress, or psychological susceptibility, yet inconsistency, delay, and fragmentation made resolution impossible. The city's elite remained captivated. Fascination intertwined with fear, anticipation with dread, ensuring cycles of psychological influence persisted. Legends of men who disappeared entirely fueled speculation. Had she orchestrated vanishings, or did myth exaggerate reality? The subtleties of chemical influence, environmental control, and psychological insight produced outcomes resistant to analysis. Memory and perception became battlegrounds, further reinforcing mystery. Fragmented symptoms, delayed onset, and social expectation ensured persistent uncertainty, amplifying fascination, dread, and legend. Her methods remained beyond verification. Scientific, medical, and social scrutiny failed to uncover mechanisms, dosages, or intent, leaving myth unchallenged. Men who survived encounters carried lingering impressions, dizziness, fainting, malaise, and psychological fixation, all fragmented, inconsistent, and enduring. Social networks propagated partial accounts, rumor and embellishment amplifying impact, fascination, and uncertainty across the city. Legend and fact intertwined seamlessly. Men recalled fragments, misremembered details, and speculated endlessly, ensuring mystery remained central to narrative. The widow's absence became symbolic. Memory, expectation, and anticipation continued influence, perpetuating cycles of fascination, fear, and psychological control. Fragmented, inconsistent, and delayed symptoms ensured absence of evidence while sustaining perception of inevitable, lethal, and irresistible charm. The city speculated endlessly. Had she vanished, died, or perfected methods of remote influence? Mystery ensured fascination persisted, unchallenged and compelling. The widow's mastery extended to social networks. Anticipation, rumor, and fragmented narratives became instruments of influence, amplifying legend beyond direct interaction. Her psychological reach was subtle but pervasive. Memory, expectation, and social pressure maintained cycles of engagement, fascination, and dread. Fragmented recollections and delayed symptoms ensured enduring ambiguity, reinforcing legend, fascination, and psychological impact across social strata. Legends of sudden disappearance, lingering malaise, and subtle influence cemented perception of inevitable, irresistible, and lethal charm. Her methods, unknowable and untraceable, created enduring cycles of fascination and dread. Even indirect observers were ensnared psychologically, perpetuating myth. Fragmented, delayed, and subtle effects ensured no intervention could challenge influence. Legend persisted, fascination intensified, and psychological impact remained enduring. The city's elite remained captivated, fearful, and enthralled. Anticipation, curiosity, and fragmented accounts reinforced cycles of observation, rumor, and legend. The widow's mysterious mastery over charm, chemistry, and psychology ensured that even absence could not diminish influence. Fascination, dread, and engagement persisted indefinitely. Fragmented experiences, lingering malaise, and delayed disorientation reinforced myth, creating enduring social and psychological imprint that defied resolution. Men questioned memory, perception, and judgment, amplifying psychological dominance while legend remained untouchable, mysterious, and compelling. The cumulative effect of memory, rumor, anticipation, and social expectation ensured enduring cycles of fascination, dread, and myth, cementing her place as enigmatic, lethal, and unforgettable. The poisoned widow's enigma persisted. Men continued to report subtle symptoms long after encounters. Dizziness, fainting, malaise, and psychological fixation lingered, leaving fragmented impressions that reinforced fascination, dread, and myth. New York society speculated endlessly. Sightings, disappearances, and lingering effects created endless debate, uncertainty, and obsession. Some claimed she had vanished completely, moving undetected among the elite, influencing from shadows. Her presence felt but never confirmed. Fragmented accounts in letters and diaries described physical weakness, sudden faintness, and mental disorientation, yet inconsistencies and delay prevented verification. Medical analysis failed to detect cause. Subtle toxins, psychological manipulation, and delayed effects defied understanding. The widow's methods transcended conventional science. Charm, social engineering, environmental manipulation, and subtle chemistry combined to produce effects invisible yet undeniable. Men questioned coincidence, stress, or fatigue, yet repeated patterns of weakness, dizziness, and malaise defied casual explanation. The legend of disappearances amplified fascination. Men vanished without trace, leaving fragmented reports, speculation, and fear in their wake. The city's elite remained captivated. Anticipation, curiosity, and social pressure compelled engagement even amidst awareness of danger. Fragmented memory ensured psychological impact persisted. Men recalled partial events, fainting or malaise, reinforcing cycles of fascination and dread. Her absence did not diminish influence. Rumor, anticipation, and fragmented accounts maintained engagement, fascination, and psychological dominance. The widow's mastery extended to perception and memory. Social expectation, anticipation, and fragmented experience became instruments of control. Men questioned reality, health, and judgment. Subtle symptoms persisted, leaving psychological and social imprint. Fragmented accounts circulated. Tales of fainting, malaise, and disorientation amplified legend and fascination across New York society. Observers speculated endlessly, combining rumor, observation, and imagination to reinforce myth and mystery. Society became both audience and instrument. Anticipation, rumor, and fascination ensured continued engagement despite risk or awareness of danger. The widow's dual mastery of charm and subtle lethality ensured enduring fascination. Obsession and fear. Men remained captivated, disoriented, and psychologically ensnared. Legend intertwined with fact. Fragmented accounts, delayed symptoms, and mysterious disappearances amplified fascination, leaving men in society entranced and unsettled. Her methods remained untraceable. Subtle chemical influence, psychological insight, and environmental manipulation produced effects resistant to detection and analysis. Even indirect witnesses experienced unease, anticipation, and fascination. Social networks became amplifiers of influence, perpetuating cycles of observation, rumor, and legend. Fragmented memories ensured enduring cycles of psychological control. Men questioned perception, judgment, and health, reinforcing fascination and dread. The widow's influence transcended physical presence. Memory, rumor, and anticipation became instruments of enduring control. Her mastery of charm, subtle poisoning, and social orchestration created cumulative effects. Lingering malaise, disorientation, and psychological fixation ensured legend persisted indefinitely. Fragmented, inconsistent symptoms left investigators powerless. Absence of proof amplified fascination, fear, and social engagement. Men continued to recount fainting, malaise, and dizziness, spreading narrative without direct evidence, reinforcing legend and psychological dominance. The city's elite became complicit. Rumor, anticipation, and fragmented experience amplified cycles of fascination. Dread and engagement, subtle environmental cues, psychological insight, and chemical influence converged, producing layered effects that were invisible yet profound, reinforcing myth and legend. The widow's mastery extended into social consciousness. Memory, rumor, anticipation, and social pressure maintained cycles of fascination, fear, and engagement, even in absence. Her absence itself became symbol of enduring mystery. Men speculated endlessly, uncertain whether vanished, observing or manipulating events from shadows. Fragmented recollections ensured ambiguity. Men questioned health, perception, and memory, amplifying psychological control and fascination. Legend persisted across social networks. Letters, diaries, whispers, and anecdotes carried fragmented accounts, ensuring myth endured without proof. Men who survived encounters experienced lingering malaise, dizziness, and psychological fixation, perpetuating cycles of fascination, fear, and rumor. The widow's methods remained unknowable. Staggered symptoms, psychological manipulation, environmental control, and subtle chemical influence defied detection and analysis, leaving legend unchallenged. Fragmented, delayed, and subtle effects ensured absence of evidence, while fascination, dread, and psychological control remained absolute. Society's elite continued engagement. Anticipation, rumor, and fragmented accounts amplified cycles of observation, fascination, and psychological influence. The widow's influence was pervasive. Memory, social expectation, anticipation, and rumor ensured continued fascination, psychological control, and legend across multiple layers of society. Fragmented experiences, lingering malaise, and delayed disorientation ensured enduring ambiguity, fascination, and myth. Men remained captivated, fearful, and enthralled. Cycles of engagement, observation, and rumor reinforced legend and psychological dominance. The city itself became instrument. Fragmented narratives, social pressure, and anticipation amplified cumulative effect, perpetuating myth and fascination. The widow's dual mastery of charm and subtle lethality ensured enduring fascination. Obsession and psychological influence. Legend persisted even without physical presence. Fragmented accounts, delayed symptoms, and subtle effects reinforced cycles of observation, rumor, and fascination across social strata. Men questioned reality, health, and perception, ensuring psychological dominance extended beyond direct interaction. The cumulative effect ensured mystery endured. Fascination, dread, and engagement persisted, embedding legend deeply in social consciousness. The widow's mastery over charm, psychology, environment, and subtle chemical influence created a narrative resistant to investigation. Proof or intervention, fragmented, delayed, and subtle effects ensured enduring cycles of fascination, fear, and social engagement. Legend continued unchallenged. The city remained captivated. Anticipation, curiosity, and social expectation ensured participation, rumor propagation, and ongoing fascination despite awareness of risk. Fragmented memory, lingering malaise, and psychological impact reinforced cycles of observation, engagement, and legend. The widow's influence persisted. Absence did not diminish control, anticipation, fascination, and psychological ensnarement ensured enduring legend. Men's fragmented recollections, delayed symptoms, and lingering disorientation amplified fascination, fear, and myth, embedding narrative into social and psychological fabric. The poisoned widow's enigma persisted. Men continued to report subtle symptoms long after encounters. Dizziness, fainting, malaise, and psychological fixation lingered, leaving fragmented impressions that reinforced fascination, dread, and myth. New York society speculated endlessly. Sightings, disappearances, and lingering effects created endless debate, uncertainty, and obsession. Some claimed she had vanished completely, moving undetected among the elite, influencing from shadows. Her presence felt but never confirmed. Fragmented accounts in letters and diaries described physical weakness, sudden faintness, and mental disorientation, yet inconsistencies and delay prevented verification. Medical analysis failed to detect cause. Subtle toxins, psychological manipulation, and delayed effects defied understanding. The widow's methods transcended conventional science. Charm, social engineering, environmental manipulation, and subtle chemistry combined to produce effects invisible yet undeniable. Men questioned coincidence, stress, or fatigue, yet repeated patterns of weakness, dizziness, and malaise defied casual explanation. The legend of disappearances amplified fascination. Men vanished without trace, leaving fragmented reports, speculation, and fear in their wake. The city's elite remained captivated. Anticipation, curiosity, and social pressure compelled engagement even amidst awareness of danger. Fragmented memory ensured psychological impact persisted. Men recalled partial events, fainting or malaise, reinforcing cycles of fascination and dread. Her absence did not diminish influence. Rumor, anticipation, and fragmented accounts maintained engagement, fascination, and psychological dominance. The widow's mastery extended to perception and memory. Social expectation, anticipation, and fragmented experience became instruments of control. Men questioned reality, health, and judgment. Subtle symptoms persisted, leaving psychological and social imprint. Fragmented accounts circulated. Tales of fainting, malaise, and disorientation amplified legend and fascination across New York society. Observers speculated endlessly, combining rumor, observation, and imagination to reinforce myth and mystery. Society became both audience and instrument. Anticipation, rumor, and fascination ensured continued engagement despite risk or awareness of danger. The widow's dual mastery of charm and subtle lethality ensured enduring fascination. Obsession and fear. Men remained captivated, disoriented, and psychologically ensnared. Legend intertwined with fact. Fragmented accounts, delayed symptoms, and mysterious disappearances amplified fascination, leaving men in society entranced and unsettled. Her methods remained untraceable. Subtle chemical influence, psychological insight, and environmental manipulation produced effects resistant to detection and analysis. Even indirect witnesses experienced unease, anticipation, and fascination. Social networks became amplifiers of influence, perpetuating cycles of observation, rumor, and legend. Fragmented memories ensured enduring cycles of psychological control. Men questioned perception, judgment, and health, reinforcing fascination and dread. The widow's influence transcended physical presence. Memory, rumor, and anticipation became instruments of enduring control. Her mastery of charm, subtle poisoning, and social orchestration created cumulative effects. Lingering malaise, disorientation, and psychological fixation ensured legend persisted indefinitely. Fragmented, inconsistent symptoms left investigators powerless. Absence of proof amplified fascination, fear, and social engagement. Men continued to recount fainting, malaise, and dizziness, spreading narrative without direct evidence, reinforcing legend and psychological dominance. The city's elite became complicit. Rumor, anticipation, and fragmented experience amplified cycles of fascination. Dread and engagement, subtle environmental cues, psychological insight, and chemical influence converged, producing layered effects that were invisible yet profound, reinforcing myth and legend. The widow's mastery extended into social consciousness. Memory, rumor, anticipation, and social pressure, maintained cycles of fascination, fear, and engagement, even in absence. Her absence itself became symbol of enduring mystery. Men speculated endlessly, uncertain whether vanished, observing or manipulating events from shadows. Fragmented recollections ensured ambiguity. Men questioned health, perception, and memory, amplifying psychological control and fascination. Legend persisted across social networks. Letters, diaries, whispers, and anecdotes carried fragmented accounts, ensuring myth endured without proof. Men who survived encounters experienced lingering malaise, dizziness, and psychological fixation, perpetuating cycles of fascination, fear, and rumor. The widow's methods remained unknowable. Staggered symptoms, psychological manipulation, environmental control, and subtle chemical influence defied detection and analysis, leaving legend unchallenged. Fragmented, delayed, and subtle effects ensured absence of evidence, while fascination, dread, and psychological control remained absolute. Society's elite continued engagement. Anticipation, rumor, and fragmented accounts amplified cycles of observation, fascination, and psychological influence. The widow's influence was pervasive. Memory, social expectation, anticipation, and rumor ensured continued fascination, psychological control, and legend across multiple layers of society. Fragmented experiences, lingering malaise, and delayed disorientation ensured enduring ambiguity, fascination, and myth. Men remained captivated, fearful, and enthralled. Cycles of engagement, observation, and rumor reinforced legend and psychological dominance. The city itself became instrument. Fragmented narratives, social pressure, and anticipation amplified cumulative effect, perpetuating myth and fascination. The widow's dual mastery of charm and subtle lethality ensured enduring fascination. Obsession and psychological influence. Legend persisted even without physical presence. Fragmented accounts, delayed symptoms, and subtle effects reinforced cycles of observation, rumor, and fascination across social strata. Men questioned reality, health, and perception, ensuring psychological dominance extended beyond direct interaction. The cumulative effect ensured mystery endured. Fascination, dread, and engagement persisted, embedding legend deeply in social consciousness. The widow's mastery over charm, psychology, environment, and subtle chemical influence created a narrative resistant to investigation. Proof or intervention, fragmented, delayed, and subtle effects ensured enduring cycles of fascination, fear, and social engagement. Legend continued unchallenged. The city remained captivated. Anticipation, curiosity, and social expectation ensured participation, rumor propagation, and ongoing fascination despite awareness of risk. Fragmented memory, lingering malaise, and psychological impact reinforced cycles of observation, engagement, and legend. The widow's influence persisted. Absence did not diminish control. Anticipation, fascination, and psychological ensnarement ensured enduring legend. Men's fragmented recollections, delayed symptoms, and lingering disorientation amplified fascination, fear, and myth, embedding narrative into social and psychological fabric. The final echoes of the poisoned widow's presence reverberated through New York society. Fascination, dread, and obsession persisted long after she disappeared. Men continued to recount lingering dizziness, fainting, and malaise, their fragmented memories reinforcing cycles of psychological capture and legend. Fragmented letters, diaries, and social whispers carried tales of subtle poisoning, lethal charm, and psychological mastery, ensuring myth persisted across generations. The widow's absence did not diminish impact. Memory, rumor, and social expectation maintained cycles of fascination, engagement, and dread. Men questioned reality, health, and perception. Lingering symptoms reinforced psychological dominance and fascination. Legend intertwined seamlessly with recollection. Fragmented, delayed, and subtle experiences left society captivated, fearful, and mesmerized. The widow's mastery of charm, subtle chemical influence, and observation ensured enduring fascination and social control. Cycles of anticipation, rumor, and engagement perpetuated psychological impact. Fragmented experiences circulated. Men recalled dizziness, fainting, malaise, and disorientation, amplifying legend and fear across social strata. Society became both audience and instrument. Rumor, anticipation, and fascination ensured continued engagement, embedding myth in social consciousness. The widow's methods remained unknowable. Staggered symptoms, subtle psychological manipulation, and environmental control produced effects resistant to scientific, medical, or social intervention. Men questioned coincidence, stress, or psychosomatic response, yet repeated patterns left no doubt of her irresistible, lethal mastery. Fragmented memory ensured psychological impact persisted. Men recalled partial experiences, enhancing fascination, dread, and legend. The city's elite speculated endlessly. Sightings, disappearances, and lingering symptoms reinforced cycles of fascination, dread, and myth. The widow's lethal charm extended beyond physical presence. Memory, anticipation, and rumor became instruments of control, ensuring enduring psychological and social dominance. Men chronicled lingering malaise, fainting, and psychological fixation, perpetuating cycles of observation, engagement, and fascination. Fragmented experiences blurred the line between myth and reality. Anticipation, rumor, and fragmented memory amplified psychological capture and legend. Society absorbed narrative. Cycles of fascination, dread, and engagement persisted, embedding myth in collective consciousness. Her absence itself became symbol, unseen, untouchable, yet psychologically dominant. Fascination, dread, and obsession remained entrenched across social strata. Fragmented recollections perpetuated ambiguity. Men questioned memory, health, and perception, reinforcing cycles of fascination and dread. The widow's dual mastery of charm and subtle lethality ensured enduring fascination. Memory, rumor, and anticipation became instruments of social and psychological influence. Men who survived encounters recounted lingering malaise, dizziness, and fainting, amplifying cycles of fascination, fear, and legend. Fragmented symptoms and delayed onset ensured no evidence existed, while legend, fascination, and psychological control persisted across social networks. The city itself became instrument. Anticipation, rumor, and fragmented experiences amplified cumulative effect, perpetuating myth and fascination. Her influence extended into social consciousness. Memory, expectation, and anticipation maintained cycles of fascination, engagement, and psychological dominance. Men questioned reality, perception, and health. Lingering malaise and fainting reinforced legend, fascination, and psychological ensnarement. Fragmented accounts ensured enduring cycles of engagement, observation, and fascination. The widow's influence transcended presence, embedding myth in collective memory. Her mastery of charm, subtle chemical influence, and social orchestration produced enduring cycles of fascination, fear, and psychological dominance. Fragmented recollections persisted. Letters, diaries, and anecdotal narratives carried tales of lingering malaise, dizziness, and fainting, reinforcing legend across generations. Men remained captivated, fearful, and enthralled. Cycles of engagement, anticipation, and rumor sustained fascination and legend. The city's elite became complicit. Social expectation, rumor, and anticipation amplified cycles of psychological control, fascination, and dread. Her lethal elegance ensured cycles of fascination, rumor, and engagement persisted. Absence did not diminish influence. Anticipation or dread fragmented, delayed, and subtle effects perpetuated cycles of observation, engagement, and fascination, embedding myth deeply in social consciousness. Men questioned memory, perception, and judgment, reinforcing psychological control and fascination across social strata. The widow's influence endured indefinitely. Absence, rumor, and anticipation became instruments of dominance, embedding myth, fear, and fascination into collective memory. Fragmented recollections, lingering malaise, and delayed disorientation amplified fascination and psychological impact. Legend persisted across generations. The city chronicled encounters, subtle symptoms, and anecdotal experiences. Fragmented, delayed, and subtle effects ensured enduring ambiguity, fascination, and legend. Men remained psychologically ensnared. Cycles of anticipation, rumor, and engagement reinforced fascination, dread, and legend. The poisoned widow's story ended not with revelation, punishment, or capture, but with enduring myth. Lethal elegance, charm, and subtle mastery continued to captivate, terrify, and mesmerize. Fragmented experiences, lingering malaise, and delayed symptoms ensured cycles of fascination, dread, and social reinforcement persisted across decades. Her legend became indelible. Memory, rumor, and anticipation acted as instruments of psychological and social control, embedding myth and fascination into social consciousness. Men remained captivated, fearful, and mesmerized. Cycles of anticipation, rumor, and engagement reinforced legend and psychological dominance. The widow's lethal mastery, subtle chemistry, and psychological insight ensured enduring fascination, dread, and legend. Absence did not diminish influence or psychological impact. Fragmented memories, delayed symptoms, and lingering disorientation ensured fascination persisted indefinitely, embedding myth into collective social memory. Her story concluded with ambiguity, fascination, and legend. New York society remained captivated, fearful, and entranced, cycles of engagement and observation perpetuating her myth across generations. The widow's ultimate mastery was complete, unseen yet omnipresent, lethal yet elegant, subtle yet absolute, ensuring fascination, dread, and psychological control endured indefinitely in memory, rumor, and social expectation.